In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the perspective grid tool, and we're going to be creating these two buildings. And so if you go over to your toolbar, you'll see this tool right here. When you click on it, this pops up, okay? And some basics about the perspective grid. We've got a horizon line, okay? We've got two vanishing points here because we're using 2-point perspective, and we can actually move those vanishing points, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. We've got this perspective widget, which is important because depending on which one of these is highlighted is which side we're going to be drawing. Or in the case for this, we're going to be moving objects onto our grid so they go in perspective, and we're going to have to be clicking on these sides. You can also use 1, 2. 1 is for left, 2 is for horizontal grid, and 3 is for the right grid, okay? Now, a lot of times people get tired of seeing the grid and they want to get rid of it. The best way to get rid of it is actually you have to be on this tool and click this. So right now I'm on the selection tool. I'm not on the perspective grid tool. But if I'm on the perspective grid tool, I can turn it off, okay? And then if you want to turn it back on, you got to select another thing and then come back over here. Now we can also do Shift Command I to hide it, okay? And Shift Command I to bring it back up. So you may want to use those keyboard shortcuts, but you know, if you're not using your keyboard shortcuts, just keep in mind in order to move this widget or use this widget, you know, or basically see your grid or turn it off, you have to use the grid tool and have to click on this widget, okay? So anyway, we're going to turn it off for right now. And let's just get started. I'm going to come over. So what you're going to need to do is you need to set up a new letter size page and CMYK and 300 PPF for our raster effects, and that won't really be affecting this part of the exercise because we're going to be having some other video tutorials for other parts of this exercise. But anyway, let's get started. So I just want to show you some basics with this grid here, and like I said, we can move points like this because, you know, when you're drawing perspective, depending on where you're standing, you know, if we were trying to draw like a hallway, like an intersection in a building, and there's two hallways that meet up, and if we're looking, you know, straight at the corner there, yeah, we'd see it like that. But if we're seeing more of one side like this is a little bit more realistic, okay? And same thing with being on a city street. You know, if you're looking across the street, you may be seeing more of the buildings from one side versus another. And so that is key. That's very important to think about when you're drawing a perspective, okay? So that everything's not just plain. So we've got, we can change those. We can move the grid up but to see it. But the thing is this. We don't need the grid. If our grid is short like this, we can still draw in perspective up here. And so let's just get the rectangle tool, and I'll show you. You won't need to do this. I just want you to watch. And that is, I'm just going to draw a shape here. I'll draw a black shape, turn the stroke off. And I'm going to be up here, and I'm on this left grid here. So, see, it continues to draw. Even if I'm over here, it draws it, okay? So, as you can see, it just keeps drawing it even once we're off the grid, okay? So the grid is there to sort of show us the perspective, but as far as drawing it, you can draw outside of the grid, and it'll kind of stick to it, all right? So anyway, let me go back to the grid here, because now if you want to move the grid, these little diamond shapes will move your grid around, okay? So those move the grid around. This will show you how far you can extend the grid out. Okay, but as I said, even if the grid is not extended, you can still draw on it, all right? Now, let's just draw something basic, and you won't need to draw this, okay? So, you know, let's say I wanted to draw a cube in perspective, and I set my perspective so that my horizon line's way up higher. Then what I would do is I would get a rectangle. I would set my left grid, or I can use 1 as my keyboard shortcut to pick that one. And let's just draw a rectangle like this, okay? And you don't have to draw this. I just want to show you what this does, okay? Now, I'm going to draw another rectangle on this side, so I'm going to change this. This is 3 is the keyboard shortcut, and we'll draw this way, okay? Now, when you draw in perspective, you need to also think about light source and shadows, because otherwise, if you use the same value, the same color on all the sides, it looks flat. You won't be able to tell which side is which, okay? So it's important to think about your light source. So I'm going to be thinking that my light source is coming down from the upper right side, and so therefore this side is going to be lighter, okay? I'm going to make it something like this, all right? Now, if I want to draw on the top of it, I'm going to hit the 2 key, so that will actually toggle to that, and I'm just going to draw out here. And this is how we would draw a rectangle. And now, if our sun is coming down from the upper part, then this rectangle here, or in perspective, would be lightest. And so that's how we can make something look like it's 3-dimensional, okay? And if we want to turn off the grid, like I said, Shift-Command-I is a quick keyboard shortcut. And, you can move this around afterwards. It won't, if you want to draw more things on it, on the grid, then you got to keep it in place. So, I'm going to delete this right now. Other things to know about the grid is this. Up under View, you got Perspective Grid, and you've got a lot of different things here. We can hide the grid. That's where Shift-Command-I comes in. We can show rulers, so you can actually show measurements on this thing, and we can change those rulers. Right now it's set to points, because if we go up under Define Grid, this is set to points, but we could set to inches if that makes more sense, okay? Also, let's go back under here, Perspective Grid. We got Snap to Grid. We got Lock Grid. We got Lock Station Point, which I like, because what that does is, as I was talking about with perspective and vanishing points, if we wanted to move one vanishing point and we got the station point locked, then what it does is it swivels like this, and I like this. This is really cool, because we can quickly change our angle, our viewpoint this way very quickly. I like that, and because otherwise, if that's not on, then only one side moves. I love this feature because like I said, it swivels like that. So anyway, there's that, and let's see here. Let's go back to Perspective Grid. Under Defined Grid, we can do a lot of different things. I'm actually going to have to use that in a second, because there's a flaw with one of the grids, and that is up under here we could do 1-point perspective. And what I don't like about this is when you go down here, if you just click 1-point perspective, you haven't clicked it. You actually, I don't know why they have it set up like this, but I think primarily because you can have multiple 1-point perspective. But you have to do this, okay? And again, as I was saying, I've seen a lot of students draw in perspective, and I had some drawing this week in perspective, and if they're using 1 point, they have the vanishing point smack down the center of the page. It's actually far more interesting to change your vanishing point so it's a little off, so that we're seeing one side more than the other. Let's say we're imagining looking down a hallway. It's like it's kind of boring to draw it straight down the center. It's more interesting to draw it off center, okay? Keep that in mind. All right, so let me go back over here to Perspective Grid. So that's 2-point, which we've seen. And then we got 3-point. Now, I've got another 3-point here, and that's one of the reasons why it does this, okay? As I said, I don't know quite why it does it, but here's why it does it, really. And that is we can save presets. So I have 3-point perspective, and this is what comes with the program if you open it up and go 3-point perspective. And it's like a bird's eye view, because it's like if we were to be drawing buildings, we would be drawing them where we're looking down on them, okay? And we'd be way up in the air. And, you might not want to draw buildings that way. Well, I have tried to change this. Now, it may work this time, but there's been bugs with this because like right now it got locked. Okay, see that got locked, and now I can't do anything. Now I can move it. Okay, so let's move it up. Okay, everything seems to be working now. A moment ago I was trying to do a video. I've restarted this video several times because I've been trying to get the hang of this tool and explain it without making too many errors. But anyway, now it's working. So, if it doesn't work for you, if you're trying to draw something and set it up in 3-point perspective, and you want the vanishing point way up here, there is a way to do this under define. And I'm going to undo this here. And that is, up under here where I'm saying perspective grid, define grid. So I was having a problem with it just a moment ago. So our third vanishing point is actually set at a negative 500 point. Well, if we wanted to get way up there like I was trying to manually move it, we can do plus, and we can do, I'm going to do 25 like that. And let's see what this looks like. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's much better. And no flaws, nothing goes wrong here. We can change this. And now, if we like this, we can name it because that's what I have here. I already have a perspective guide set up, and I'm trying to find this thing again because it's all lost. And I get lost in here very easily. So up under view, perspective grid, go down to save grid as preset, and we can. I'm going to save this as 3-point city 2. Okay, something like that. So now, I've got these different options for drawing in 3-point perspective. I've got city 1, which is set up like that, and then I've got over here city 2. Okay, and that's just something you should keep in mind if you set up a perspective grid and you want to use it over and over again. Okay, that's a good way to do it. All right, we're going to just go and do a 2-point perspective. And so let's go back down to perspective grid, and we can get started. So I want to get started because I've been doing all this talking, and we need to get you started with the exercise. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my horizon line up a little bit. I'm going to move this up a little bit, and I'm going to swivel this way. And so what you want to do is you want to go into your perspective grid and lock your station points if they're not locked, and change your angle here like this so it's more interesting. Okay, and next what we're going to do is we're not going to use the grid to draw on for the moment. Okay, I'm going to turn it off because we have to turn it off in order to draw, because otherwise we're on one of those planes within that widget. So what you're going to need to do is we're going to draw 2 sides, and I'm just going to draw them here, and then we'll move them off to the side here, of a building. So we'll start with one side here, and we'll make it a color. I can kind of pick off colors here if I want to, but this is actually more of a greenish color. So we'll put in a little yellow, a little blue. You could just keep it gray if you want to. I like to play with color, so that I like to use grays. And anytime I use grays, I add color to it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this by dragging it over and holding down my Option and my Shift key so it goes like this. And we're going to draw this side out just a little longer here. So we're going to have 2 sides here, one longer than the other. We can extend this one maybe just a little bit more here. So these are going to be 2 sides of the building. Now if we want the top of the building, and actually I'm going to take these 2 right now and just shrink them both down and like this. So they're together. So at least their heights are going to be the same. Yeah, something like this perhaps. Okay. But anyway, what I was going to say is if we were going to draw the top of the building, we could duplicate this, but then we would absolutely want to try this and rotate this. I'm going to hold down my Shift key so it snaps into place. And we want to make sure, I don't know why it's doing that, but we want to make sure these are the exact same if we're going to be using that corner point there, okay? And so we can have something kind of set up like this. And mine's a little different there. I have it set up like that. We can rotate this back up if we want to, like that. Okay. So anyway, so we want our sides to be different in value. So I'm going to drop the black down a little bit on this side here. I'm going to actually change the color of my rooftop a little bit. So we're going to make it lighter, but maybe make it a little bit more pinkish, just something different because, roofs can be different. They can be darker than the sides of the buildings depending on what the materials are making up the roof. Just playing around here, just seeing what I like. And, I like to play around with color too much. Maybe something like this, okay? Or I did want it a little bit more pinkish. Sorry. All right, so mainly, as long as one side's a little darker, okay, and our roof is a different color than the others, that's great. All right, now, let's get down to business as far as drawing windows. Now, you could draw your windows in perspective on the grid, but it's time-consuming. It's extremely time-consuming because you have to really take your time building this. I found a quicker way to make windows. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get my rectangle tool. I'm going to draw a window shape here. And we're going to make this a dark color. So I'll make it really dark. Maybe add a little bit more blue to it, something like that. Maybe magenta. I don't know. I'm just playing around here. You can make it pure black if you want to. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take this window and I'm going to move it and copy it by holding down my Alt key, my Shift key, so it keeps it straight across, all right? And then I'm going to do that same thing again over here. I'm going to bring it so it's on this side of the building, okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing, drag it again, hold down my Shift and my Alt or Option key, and do this. So now we've got this going on, all right? So what I'm going to do to make windows much faster is I am actually going to go and use what's called the blend tool. Now, or that's the shape builder tool. Sorry about that. Let me find my blend tool. Blend tool's here. All right. Blend tool, let's see what the keyboard shortcut for the blend tool is. All right. W is a keyboard shortcut. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on one corner of this, and then we're going to go to the opposite corner here. And right now, what it does is it draws in all these other rectangles. Now, if, for instance, this rectangle was a lighter color, it does this. And the reason why is because years ago, and this was when I first started using Illustrator back in the early 1990s, in order to make a gradient, they didn't have a gradient tool. They had the blend tool, okay? And that's how you made gradients, by using either lines or shapes like I did and do that. But what we're doing is this, is that you want to keep this selected. Go over, as long as you keep your blend selected, go over to your blend tool and double click the tool. And this will pop up, okay? Spacing, smooth color. So as you saw, it creates a very smooth color when it creates a blend. But we can change this to specified steps. And right now it's got 3. Well, we'll do 2. We'll see what this looks like. We might just do 1. But we'll do 2, okay? That looks good for a window, okay? So therefore, we'll have 2 like that. And click OK. We're going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to deselect. Shift-Command-A is a quick keyboard shortcut to deselect. And then I'm going to click on this anchor point here. And I like to try to click on the opposite because sometimes weird things happen. Let me click on this one here. Yes. Okay. I recorded this tutorial earlier and had some problems, and this was occurring a lot. And sometimes it occurs and sometimes it doesn't. So it twists it, and that's why when I'm clicking with this blend tool, I'm clicking on one corner and I'm trying to click on the same corner on this. So, oops, you know what I did? I accidentally clicked on the background rectangle. Okay, so again, you gotta be careful where you click, because I'm going to click here. And then I'm going to click on this corner down here, and therefore it will draw this out, okay? So where you click as far as on these rectangles is very important, and you can always undo and re-click, okay? I say re-click because I was saying you're not really selecting those. We come over here, double-click, change smooth color to specified steps. Right now it's set at 9. Let's do 7 and just take a peek and see what that looks like. All right, maybe we'll do 6. So this is very useful because let's say you were doing, a flag and you wanted to do stars. Well, it takes a long time to draw all the stars and space them out, but you could do this way with a blend. All right, now that we've got that, I'm going to take both of these, and I'm going to do some, because right now if we go to outline mode, Command Y, you know, this is what we see. We see this line here, okay? And that's it, because it's a blend. Now, this line you can actually move using the direct selection tool. We can actually do that, and it will change it. One other thing I realized 2 years ago was you can actually play around with the pen tool, because remember you got the up under the pen tool here. You got this anchor point tool. You can actually do this, and I'm going to do that, and we're going to go back to preview so you can see what I've just done here. Let's do Command Y. And it does that, okay? I just want to let you see that, because yes, you could actually bend the curvature of your blend if you ever need to. It's kind of interesting. But anyway, we don't want to do that, because what we're going to do is I'm going to go to Object and Expand, okay? And it'll say Object and Fill. And what this does is I'm going to go to Command Y again, go to Outline Mode. It draws in those rectangles, and that's what we want, okay? Now, why this is important is because if we got all these windows, then we can actually color different windows different colors, okay? I'm going to do the same for this one here. I'm going to go to Object Expand and click OK. And then what I'm going to do is, since these are grouped, I'm in isolation mode. That happens. I'm going to click out of here, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this set of windows down here, hold down my Alt key, hold down my Shift key, so it's something like this. And then I'm going to do the same here. And we're going to do a blend between, I'm going to deselect, and we're going to do a blend for these to make the windows in between. And this is such a fast way to make windows, okay? Go to Specified Steps. Okay. And we'll make it, let's say 2. Let's see what that looks like. That looks good. Okay, so we're going to be using 2 for this next one also. So we'll do Shift Command A. That'll deselect it. And then we'll come over here and click on this corner of this one and this corner of this one. And go back to the Blend tool, double-click it. Go to Specified Steps and set this to 2. Okay? And like I said, what this does is this allows us to actually, let's say if we have lights on in this building, and we're going to just do some lighter color here. I'll just click over here like this. This is faster. Yeah, okay. It looks like I actually somehow, it's a blend. Oh, I didn't expand those, guys. See? It's so important to see, it's creating a blend between that. That's kind of neat, though. That is really neat, because it does calculate a blend, even though it's only two steps there. It calculates a blend like that. So I didn't even notice when I was doing that. So we need to actually expand these guys. We got to expand this one. Object, expand. And then we got to come over here and expand this one too. All right? It's good to see mistakes happen when the teacher's doing this, because you guys are going to run into these problems, and you need to know how to get out of them. So it's better that I make mistakes like this. Anyway, let's click on these. Then I'm going to go pick, maybe a light yellow color here. I like that color. And then, we're going to select some of these to put color into. We can use the group selection tool or just the direct selection tool. And so so if this is a corner of a building and this window's on, then it most likely would be that these windows might be on, because this would be one room. And so let's turn these on here. We'll do the same over here. We'll pick up 3 here, let's say. And I like this color. I'm using the same color, but we can change it. We can change colors. And I'm going to pick a few more here, just to make it more interesting. Okay. And, like I said, we could even change the color of how these look. And if you really want to make them look cool, you can even put gradients in them, and I'm just giving you these ideas for, like, if you're creating, buildings, because we're going to be doing for our project a 3D map. All right, so now I'm going to go and I'm just take a peek over here. I actually have my building for the roof set up kind of like that. I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to go and, you know, to make the roof interesting, I'm going to copy, paste in front, and we're going to just hold down our Alt and Shift key and just make this a little smaller here. And actually, I'm going to lay off the Shift key and just make this so it looks equal distance. And we'll make this a little darker color here. You know, maybe that. Yeah, maybe something like that. Just to make it kind of more interesting, because if you look at rooftops, you know, they're not just one flat color. I'm going to actually put a structure here, and we're going to just make this a lighter color here, and maybe a little bit more like that, okay? So this will make it interesting. All right, so that's my first building I'm making, and you can always play around with your colors more, but, you know, this exercise, I'm not going to be grading per se, like how good your colors are. My thing is values and thinking about keeping the buildings, you know, we're going to have one side darker than the other. So I'm going to draw another building that's going to be actually taller here, okay? And we'll use that last color that I was using for this side. And let's go over here and duplicate this so that maybe make this side a little longer here. Or we can do the opposite. Oh, no, let's go this way. We'll make this side just a little longer than that. But this side we're going to make darker, okay? Just to make it interesting. The other thing, I don't know if I told you about this, but here's the deal. If you've got color, I don't think I've included this before, is if you have color in something, and I'm just going to say that color is going to be that side. I'm going to use my eyedropper so it's equal. What I'm trying to tell you is this. If you hold down your Shift key when you are changing your color, like hold down your Shift key and click on one of these sliders for the color, it will slide down the color in proportion, okay, which is really cool. All right, now let's make a top of this, and I'm just going to pop back over here to see what I didn't make a top for that. We won't need to make a top for this one because this building's going to go past the horizon line. You know, if we take a look up at our perspective grid here, you see the horizon line. So if it goes past that horizon line, you don't need a top of your building, okay? So let's go and start making some interesting windows. I'm going to make these elongated ones like this. So we're going to draw a really long, because sometimes with taller buildings, you will see these types of windows on the building. And I'm just trying to make it a little darker here. Okay, I like that color. All right. You could just, and like I said, if you want to, just use all grayscale. You don't have to include color if it's faster. So let's take that rectangle, copy and drag. So I moved it, hold down my Alt and my Shift key, and that does that. Do the same thing again for here. And do the same thing again so we get this. And then we're going to do another blend. Okay? So we're going to do 2 more blends. And then, let's see here. We'll go get my blend tool and click on this corner and click on this corner. And then click here. Specified steps. We just do 1 here. Okay? I didn't even preview it because it's just 1. We'll deselect that. Shift Command A is deselect. And then we're going to click on this anchor point and then this anchor point. And then we're going to double click. And we're going to specified steps. And we'll change this to 3. We'll preview it just to see what it looks like. We could maybe do 2. Let's see what 2 looks like. Yeah, maybe we'll do 2. Okay? And then if we wanted to, like if you saw what I have over here happening, is I've got other windows in there. And I'm going to do a window here. And we'll just make that very dark. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to copy this window and move it over and hold down my Alt and Shift key like that and try to center it within that. Okay, and then we're just going to get our blend tool and click on one anchor point here and click on the same anchor point on this shape. Double click, specify steps, going to be 1. It should be 1. We can always preview it. Okay, so it does that, which is good. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this blend over here like this. Okay, and I'm going to move one of these over to here like this. Okay. So I want to line that up. So what I'm doing is I use the group selection tool to move it. Now, if you don't want to do this, you can just, copy one of those rectangles and move it. And I'm just trying to get this in the center here. Okay. So I just copied this blend. Well, let's go and while the whole thing is selected, and you can see the blend is activated, we can go to specified steps and we'll do, let's see, 2. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, okay. See, it puts it right in there. Okay. And so what we'll do is, I think we can actually do this. I'm going to play around with this for just a second. I'm going to take this one and copy it without expanding it. I just want to see. I'm going to copy, hold the Alt and Shift key so it does that. We'll do the same thing here. See, it lines up. Okay, good. I'm just curious. Will this blend two blends? Let's see this. Let's see if this will do it. Nope. Okay. Good thing to know. I was just wondering what would happen there. What we're going to have to do is, before we blend these, we're going to have to expand them. Okay? So let's go to expand on this set. Okay? And then let's go to this set here and do the same thing. And usually, when you do expand, sometimes it will group, well, it just groups the blend. Okay? So anyway, let's go to our blend tool and do the same thing. I'm going to click on one of these corners of one of these windows and click on the same one on the bottom. All right, there we go. And we'll go specified steps. Oops, not specified distance, but specified and see, you can do distance too, by the way. We'll do 4 and see what this looks like. Okay, I could probably live with 4. And then we'll come over here to this one. I'm going to do Shift Command A to deselect. Do the same thing. Whatever anchor point you are clicking on for your window, the bottom one needs to be the same one, so you get that. Otherwise, it will twist. If it twists on you, just undo and try again, okay? Let's do this, and we did this, was it 4? I think it did 4. Just want to make sure here. Okay, good. So those look good. Then we can take these, and I'm just selecting both of them and expanding them both at the same time. All right, so now we got this set and this set. And same thing here. We're gonna play around with lighting, okay? So we're gonna light some of these things, and I'm gonna use some of these same colors just to kind of correspond with that, and just to make our windows interesting. It's just, like I said, it makes it more interesting to have some lights on, to have something different going on. I think, like, we don't have to light them all up, but there we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this building, both of these sides, and drag them off to the side. Okay. Then what we want to do is, okay, so everything's expanded here. We want to take this set and group it. Okay, so I'm selecting over the whole thing and do Command G. Okay, and we're going to go over to this set and we're going to group it, Command G. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing with stuff over here. All right, we've got to do Command G on that. That's a funky top, that top color. Let's do Command G on that, and we'll select all these and do Command G on this. So now we have all these grouped. Okay, so now when we select them, they'll all be selected at the same time for each side. All right, now let's get that perspective grid tool, turn it on. We are going to play around with this and maybe move up our horizon line just a little bit, okay? So it's more like that. And then we're going to move in one of these sides so we see one side more than the other. And we're going to start with this smaller building here. And we're going to use this tool. This is the next tool you need to learn about, the perspective selection tool. And you can always drag this out here. Okay. One other thing I want to point out too is if you double click the perspective tool, you get this show active plane widget. That's this thing. Well, you could actually reposition this. And I'm going to reposition this at the bottom left. Okay. Anchor points of perspective artwork, intersection. Yeah. Okay. So that it's down here. so it may be less intrusive. I don't know if you like me having it down there, but I just wanted to show you you could actually move this. So you can do top right if you want to. I'll just keep it up there because I think you guys can see this on my screen easier, or your screen, that is. I apologize. So let's continue on. What we're going to do is we're going to select the right grid, okay, or three key. We're going to click on this shape here. Okay, let me come over here. You got to get the selection tool, and Shift V is a keyboard shortcut for that. Okay, Shift P is a keyboard shortcut for the perspective grid tool. So now we're going to move this into place. Okay, like that, and we're going to hit that corner. Good. See this, to me, it may take a little while to make the windows, but it takes a lot less time than drawing them in perspective, because that takes a lot longer. So now let's go and hit the 1 key. So we bring up the left grid there, and then we're going to move this side over here. Now everything lines up nicely because we're using this corner here. All right. And once we get off of that, things are going to go really crazy. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we start making the other building. Anyway, let's go and hit the 2 key. So we activate the horizontal grid. And we'll select this one. Oops. Undo that. And drag it over here. Now, okay, this needs to get resized because this is what happens sometimes. And that's okay. I sometimes things occur like this, but what we can do is by using this tool here, the selection tool, we can actually resize this so it will go back like that. And we just want to make sure these points are where they need to be. Okay, so this is a lot more extreme than my other one. And I can see here that it's just not quite lined up here. There we go. I think that's better. And like I'm going to do Shift Command I just to see what that looks like, and turn off. Okay, good. See, that looks very good like that. Okay, so let's do Shift Command I again and bring that up. And what I wanted to do was, I know this is a little hard. You don't have to do this per se, but I just thought it'd be cool to kind of draw on the grid now that we've got a building. And so I'm just going to draw and make kind of a little building on top of the building, where you have where people can come up on the roof here. And so I'm going to draw that side, and we'll use a darker color here. Let's see here. I'm just looking at my previous colors that I've used. I'm okay with that for the moment. I'll actually put a little bit more black in, so it's like that. All right, so now let's click the 3 key and draw this side of the roof. Okay, and I just think it's cool to do this because therefore you get the full perspective grid exercise treatment. You'll know everything you need to know about it. And so let's hit the 2 key so we get that, and we're going to draw from here like that. Okay, now if we wanted to put a door on here, we could. Let's go back to the 1 key so we get the left grid, and let's put a door somewhere around here, okay, like that. And this is actually going to be the door frame, and we can play around with the positioning of that a little bit so you'll stay in position there. So we have to go to the perspective, because if we use this one right here, it's not going in perspective. It's moving it, but it's not moving. But it's not doing perspective. That's why you have to use this perspective selection tool, okay? And that's so key when you move things around, okay? I just want to move that just a little bit over. Maybe like that. Okay, so now we're going to get another rectangle and draw it inside of here. So this will actually be the door to it. And we'll just make this a different color here. So now we have a door frame. Maybe we have more of a reddish door here, or orange door. Maybe a little darker there. Okay. So now, we've got something like this. Oh, let's make the top of the roof lighter on that. That will actually make it look better. There we go. All right. So now I think we're ready, and that looks okay, Now what I'm going to do is we're going to make the next building, okay? And like I said, I think it's a good idea that you try to make that top roof building because, it teaches you to draw on the perspective grid tool. Let's go and do. We'll select the. We'll use the one key. Well, actually, we got to be on the perspective tool. Okay. It doesn't. If you click on another tool here, and try to do things, it's not going to work. So let's click the one key now, so that brings the perspective widgets to the left. And then we're going to drag this side of the building over here like this, and see it goes past the horizon line. Let's go and click the other side, and then drag this, and we're going to have to resize this because as you can see here, it's going to be really big here. Okay. And all I'm going to try to do is just try to line this up with where the other one is at. Now, I know the other one is not on the same... Like, if we want to move that down, we can. And, we can go back... Well, we could go back to it like this, and then make sure this one goes down all the way. But I was going to say is, if you're ever trying to draw a city street and look at actual buildings on a city street... Oh, something weird happened there when I moved this in perspective. It did not happen the last time. I just want to make sure these are all grouped. Yeah, and everything is... let's expand the whole thing. All right. So now, now let's move it. So I've expanded it. I've undid the moving, moved it back over here to be honest. And then I'm going to go and move it back in like this. Yeah. What I was going to say is, if you go to like downtown Atlanta and walk around the streets, and they got different buildings, not all the buildings come up to the same place on the sidewalk. They're going to be at different places. It's just how they create things, unless they're creating one big building for the entire block. All right, now that goes like this, okay? And that snaps into place. And so it doesn't bother me that's not all the way there. But let's send this to the back. Shift Command, left bracket, and that will send it to the back, okay? And therefore, there's my two buildings. They're a little different from the other ones I showed you, but this should give you a good idea of how to use this perspective grid tool. And like I said, in order to turn it off, we do Shift Command I, and now you've got the buildings there. And what you're going to need to do is save this as... save on your computer, and then you'll be sending this to me. Put your last name, and then do two buildings, I think, because we're going to be having other parts of this exercise. Okay, we'll save that. And so now that you completed this, you can take a break or go right to the next tutorial, okay?